In its time it had been grime and soot, steel making in shipyards. And then, like many cities, it woke up one day to find that the world had passed it by. It became a struggling post-industrial city. The economy was in decline, young people were leaving in droves, and its image wasn't helped by terrorism. The government got together and looked with envious eyes at other cities which seemed to be thriving. They thought, tourism is probably a good way for us to go. So they built a new airport, a new subway, and a new central railway station. And then they decided to reinvent themselves by betting on culture. They came up with a really creative idea. They approached Thomas Krenz, who was the director of the Gugenheim Museum in New York, and proposed that he build a museum in their city, and they'd pay for it. Krenz agreed. The city, Bilbao, the architect, Frank Gehry, and the brief.
Okay, here's the challenge. Create a landmark building that will revitalize this city and put it on the map.
And he did, on time and below budget. The Gugenheim in Bilbao is an architectural wonder inside and out. Frank Gehry has challenged the principle that a building should be a box-like container with 4 walls at right angles, a floor and a roof. He's pushed the conventions of architecture to their limits, ignoring straight lines and traditional methods in favour of dramatic curves and unusual materials. He claims that he can't use a computer, yet his practice uses the software employed to design the Mirage jet, to plan buildings with a very high degree of accuracy using exotic materials like titanium. His buildings are daring, energetic and totally unique. They're a riot of tumbling shapes. Despite its unusual structure, the Gugenheim succeeds where most modern galleries fail. It has ample space for displaying art. The 3 levels of the building are organised around the atrium and are connected by means of curved walkways, titanium and glass elevators and staircases. The atrium is also an exhibition space, and it functions as an axis for the 20 galleries, some with classical proportions and others with organic irregular lines. The Gugenheim has transformed Frank Gehry. This one-time truck driver has become the world's most famous living architect, the first to break the orthodoxy of the right angle. He has become an international celebrity and has gone on to design some of the world's most remarkable buildings. Let's have a look at a few. This is the Dancing Building in Prague. It was inspired by the performance of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. Here's the Walt Disney Theatre in Los Angeles. Look at the Biomuseum in Panama City. Love him or hate him, you can't ignore him. He's been influenced by Marilyn Monroe's dress and by Vermeer's headdress, and by the wooden blocks he played with as a child. His mother kept live fish in the bath for the Sabbath. Frank was mesmerised by their shapes and incorporated fish in several buildings. For example, the Olympic Fish Pavilion in Barcelona and the Fish Dance restaurant in Kobe, Japan. Frank is more than an architect. He's designed furniture and lamps. Jewellery for Tiffany. Costumes for Lady Gaga. And even vodka bottles. What inspires him? Well, I guess he's just a bit of a genius. For example, he went for a brain scan and he was 45 minutes in the MRI. The doctors were quite relieved because nothing unusual showed. Frank, on the other hand, had the design for the Louis Vuitton Foundation in Paris. I focused on it the whole time I was in the machine, he said, thinking about it, fantasizing about it, designing it. His genius was confirmed when he featured on The Simpsons.
Great! We asked Frank Gehry to build us a concert hall.
Bilbao Bill.
Snoopy Stationery.
Dear Mr. Gehry, would you please build a concert hall for our town? We may not be the biggest city or the prettiest, but we were the first city in America to abandon the metric system.
Frank Gehry, you're a genius. Behold, the new Springfield Concert Hall.
Well, what about Bilbao and its aspirations? Well, against all the odds, the museum has transformed the Basque capital from a post-industrial wasteland into an international tourist attraction. Icon or eyesore, the Gugenheim has worked amazingly well. So well, in fact, that the phenomena became known as the Bilbao effect. In the 2 years following its opening in 1997, over 2 million visitors came to view it. So many, in fact, that they had to extend the airport. Basque government officials reported that the museum generated nearly €1.6 billion during its first 10 years. The Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao is a remarkable example of how architecture can transform a city's culture and economy. The museum's impact on the city of Bilbao is a testament to the power of architecture to create a lasting legacy and transform communities for generations to come. Its unique design and its innovative approach to art and architecture has made it an icon of contemporary architecture and a symbol of the Bilbao effect.